Welcome to the VC3 News Update. I am Shanette Hackshaw with the top local news stories. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves addressed the United Nations General Assembly 78th session on Saturday, and in his usual tell it like it is style, Dr. Gonsalves pointed to a number of issues which he thinks needs urgent attention. Dr. Gonsalves said it is widely acknowledged that the global political economy is broken and needs fixing through a sort of fundamental restructuring that endures for the benefit of all humanity, especially those who are disadvantaged, dispossessed, or marginalized. He further added that it is widely accepted too that the vital Sustainable Development Goals will not be attained by 2030, and there indeed would be a significant deficit for practically every developing country.
Similarly, it is widely recognized that the climate change agenda is stalling, in some respects reversing, with dire consequences for humanity, practically in most of the vulnerable countries. At the same time, war and conflict rage senselessly across the globe. In at least one case, Ukraine, the principal adversaries may unwittingly open the gates to a nuclear Armageddon. The expansive and expanding list includes racism and xenophobia, the continuing oppression of women under a patriarchy in too many countries, the seemingly uncontrollable chariots of artificial intelligence, the threatening pandemics and the anti-people consortia of big pharma, poverty and food insecurity, ignorance, miseducation, and disinformation, terrorism and its associated malcontents, the illegal trafficking in persons and narcotics, the subversion of participatory democracy and human rights, the failure and/or refusal of former colonial powers to entertain just and legitimate demands for reparations, to repair the contemporary legacies of underdevelopment caused by native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies.
Prime Minister Gonsalves also included the failure and/or refusal of major emitters of greenhouse gases to cough up the requisite resources to the affected vulnerable countries for the required adaptation, mitigation, loss, and damage. He said powerful countries and blocs of like-minded states are unwilling or unable to fashion inclusive and effective modalities. Dr. Gonsalves candidly said that the reflex action of these countries in a quest of continuum imperium or an emerging hegemony are dressed up as self-serving calls for a new world order.
From the rough trenches of the periphery, St. Vincent and the Grenadines poses yet again, in response, three haunting questions. What's new? Which world? And who gives the orders? In this context, the urgency of genuine reform of the United Nations Security Council is to be embraced after decades of futile bickering and foot-dragging. Surely it is long overdue for sensible compromises on this matter, reflective of the contemporary condition of our world. In these troubled and uncertain times, enveloped in limitations and weaknesses, there are nevertheless possibilities and strengths. The wise and mature leadership of this collective, the United Nations, is immediately required in this great endeavor to put things right for humanity.
The Prime Minister also called on the United States of America to end its unilateral and oppressive sanctions and impositions that are contrary to international law, which have been rolled out against Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela.
It is also plain silly and factually incorrect to label Cuba a sponsor of state terrorism, a label prompted by partisan domestic politics in South Florida. But it hurts the Cuban people massively and unnecessarily. The sanctions and coercive measures against Venezuela, including the weaponizing of the US dollar, have caused the collapse of the Petro-Carib Agreement, which delivered substantial benefits to over a dozen Caribbean countries, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We in the Caribbean have thus become collateral damage.
He also said that on the issue of climate change, global warming, biodiversity challenges, land degradation, and desertification, there is veritable babble and overabundance of sweet-sounding lyrics by the major emitters that turn out to be bitterly deceptive. The Lions Club South Flow National Secondary School Public Speaking Competition will once again include competitions among the secondary schools from around the island for a spot in the finals. On Tuesday, September 26 at 1 p.m. The preliminary round will start at the French's House in Kingstown. Schools in Zone 1 are expected to face the judges on the topic. Too many Vincentians view mental illness, drug addiction, and alcoholism as personal failures rather than mental conditions. On Wednesday at the same location, Zone 2 schools will speak on the practice of tokenism in respect of youth involvement, women's upliftment, and poor people's ennoblement has gotten in the way of meaningful change in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. On Thursday, schools in Zone 3 will address the topic. Artificial intelligence development has brought with it several ethical dilemmas, including a disruptive effect on the structure of the labor market. In this sense, AI can easily be a bridge too far. And on Friday, Zone 4 will address the topic. The upsurge in interest in space is fast becoming a preoccupation of the rich and does absolutely nothing to improve human condition on Earth. On the evening of Tuesday, October 24 at 7 p.m., 6 finalists from the participating schools will gather in the Methodist Church Hall in Kingstown. There will be speeches from the Ministry of Education, the sponsor, and Janelle George, president of the South Lions Club. The tournament is once again being sponsored by Flow SVG. Still in our local news story, Mr. Renato Gums, the Chief Agricultural Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, Rural Transformation, Industry and Labor, said that the country must strive for higher ideals or higher standards, or else it will be left behind. He made this clear recently when the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Bureau of Standards, in collaboration with the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, held the official launch to establish a National Quality Awards program.
No, I don't have a problem with anyone being mediocre. Because you have to start somewhere. Mediocre means you're not the best, but you're not the worst. My problem with being mediocre is when you become contented with being mediocre. That's where my problem is. And if we don't strive for higher ideals or higher standards, we will be left behind.
The Chief Agricultural Officer went on to say that a lot of individuals become content with mediocrity over the years, and that is a challenge which we face today.
But I guess a lot of us became contented over time with mediocrity. And that's the challenge we face today. How do we change the mindset of our people? I must commend and congratulate the Bureau of Standards on this initiative, the launch of these awards. What will be key is the promotion of these awards, that people see it fitting to take advantage, to participate, and lift the game because of these awards.
He said that it will take time to get where we want to reach, but a start must be made.
It will take time for us to get where we want to go. But the thing is, you have to make a start. Some have made a start, but I hope that this award will be an impetus for people to up the game.
The establishment of this program forms part of the technical barriers of trade component of the 11th European Development Fund Economic Partnership Agreement program, with the aim of providing support to CARIFORUM states in furthering the implementation of the Economic Partnership Agreement and reaping its benefits. And finally, in our local news stories for today, In St. Vincent, 2 prisons, a literacy program that was specifically created for adult inmates who are learning to read and write has restarted after being hampered by the COVID-19 pandemic and the volcanic eruption. A library area was renovated and 35 offenders participated in the literacy program in 2021-20 at His Majesty's Prison in Kingston. The initiative was carried out by neighborhood NGO Hand to Earth, whose project coordinator, Vonnie Rudette, became more aware of inmates' issues after instructing inmates in vertiver craft and art session in 2015. In response, she established an inmate-led class that was supported by the craft program before enlisting aid to increase the number of offenders who had access to fundamental reading instructions. Each cohort must complete the training, which takes 3 months and is guided by 5 instructional manuals. Mentors receive assistance to raise their own reading levels before being encouraged to work regularly with students from the jail population. The entire learning process from beginner to functional level takes a person around 8 months. By the end of 2024, the initiative hopes to have a total of 22 mentors and 25% of the jail population participating in the program, either as mentors, librarians, or learners. That has been our local news stories. Continue watching the VC3 News Update on Channel 114 for regional and international news.